Greetings, friends! Welcome to this edition of Art and Coffee, the video series dedicated to helping you find and forge your own unique voice in the realms of art and visual storytelling. As always, this is yours truly, Gabe Dunston. The coffee for today's episode is the Hologram Blend from Counterculture Coffee. Hologram, fruity, milk chocolate, syrupy. Hologram is the update of the classic Mocha Java flavor profile. Fruit-forward and chocolatey coffees combine to create something distinctly complex. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. This has been my favorite coffee bean since, I don't know, I want to say the past year and a half. It's my number one and bound to stay in my top 3. Oh yeah, that's good. We got a great topic today, so let's dive right in. A watcher / listener by the name of Saturn commented on one of my previous videos. I know what I want my style to look like. I can see it in my head, but I just can't put it on paper. Well, Saturn, I've got some good news for you. I've got a lot of good news for you. First and foremost, every single artist struggles with this. And I mean everyone, in every art form. This is a big thing that's talked about in writing as well as visual art, is not having the original concept from your head come out perfectly on the paper, on the page, on the word processor, whatnot. It's very, very common. So, take a breath, take heart. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not doing it wrong. This is the struggle. This is one of the things about being an artist, is getting your thoughts on the paper. It's an imperfect process, but the key and the glory is that the imperfection is kind of the point. The imperfection is where a lot of the coolness of art lives. That's where a lot of the thrill lives. Because that's where the happy accidents happen. The things that you do that you didn't mean to do, but oh, whoa, you know, if I follow this direction, maybe something even better will come out. Phrased a different way, not getting the exact image from your head onto the page, that's where serendipity lives. And I want you to understand, this is not something that you're going through, this is something that every artist goes through, and I mean every single one, no matter how long you've been doing this. Now, the longer you do it, the closer the original image in your head and the final image are. But also, the longer you do it, the more you understand how to stay loose and how loose you want to play. If you look at the artist Scotty Young, if you look at like early Scotty Young, he wrestled with his images until they were just right and every line was carved. But if you look at Scotty Young now, or look at Scotty Young's artwork when he started doing things like The Wizard of Oz, man, you see how loosey-goosey he plays with it. Him and Doug TenNapel, very, very, very loose guys. Do you think every one of those lines, every little bit of ink is on purpose? Absolutely not. TenNapel says he tries to thread the needle between, loose but not sloppy, like loose enough to be interesting but not so loose that it looks sloppy. In other words, he's trying to live right at the edge of serendipity. So the image in this artist's head is a general idea, and like this is something that you get to discover in your process. This is one of the ways and that you find your own unique voice, is you decide exactly how specific the image in your head is and how much leeway you're willing to give yourself. Do you want that specific image that's in your head, line for line for line? Or are you looking for something a little bit deeper? You know, this image has X, Y, and Z elements. If the camera angle is here, the composition does this, and the overall emotional impact that I'm going for is, fill in the blank. So you don't need to worry about line for line, color for color. You need to think, all right, did the composition do what I needed to do? Is the gesture flowing in the direction that it needs to flow? And most importantly for me, am I hitting the emotional beat that I need to in this specific image? So you don't have to get line for line what's in your head. And in fact, it's a good idea to loosen up in that direction, because forcing the concept of perfection upon yourself at all is not good. And especially if you're earlier in your art journey, say you're still within your first 10 years, maybe your first 5 years, perfection is not your friend. Perfection is not where greatness lives. Greatness lives in making functional decisions and functioning on a high level. The writer Stephen King wrote in his book on writing that writing a story is half jotting down your ideas, but the other half is like uncovering a fossil. It's almost as though you're discovering something that was already there. And so in this way, writers don't necessarily write down the idea that they had exactly in their head. It changes during the process of writing. And that's where being an artist lives. That's how you know you are an artist, because you let the process do its job as well as you yourself do your job. So think of it this way. You are one force. You are one art-making force, but the process itself is its own art-making force. And you can fight the process and wrestle to get your images just right, and a lot of people do, with some success, or you can collaborate with the process. So the guys who play kind of loose and fancy-free with their lines, like Scotty Young and Doug TenNapel, they're friends with the process. The process and them are holding hands and skipping down the yellow brick road. But then you get like very, very specific artists. It would be, in the comics world, it would be guys like Chris Ware or the other indie comic guy, Seth. And they have very, very specific lines that are very sharp and very deliberate. So deliberate and so smooth, the artwork looks like it was made in a vector program like Adobe Illustrator, but it's not. It's pen and ink on paper. Now, if you want to be this artist, if you want to have complete fidelity to the image in your head and leave as little room for happy accidents as possible, number one, go ahead and take a deep breath, because this is a tough road. And it's a road that's not necessarily good for you and not necessarily good for your art. And I'll get to that in a minute. But you can do it. And here's one of the reasons you might not be getting the result that you're after. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're just not. You throw down the lines, it won't go well. You gotta do the work, you gotta do the construction, lots and lots of construction lines, get your shapes in the right place, check your proportions all the time, and you gotta make friends with your eraser. You gotta make friends with a light touch to keep your construction lines very light, and then you just gotta keep going back to that eraser. And if you find yourself just getting that level of frustrated, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a break and loosen up and maybe make some concessions to the process. Because if you're getting like that too much, then this might be bad for you. That's process. But if it's not, if you are enjoying the self, if you like the meticulousness the way that Chris Ware and Seth do, if you like being slow and methodical and deliberate, then good for you. Keep going. But you just gotta make peace with the idea that you have to make your image, and if it doesn't fit your head and you're not satisfied, you gotta wrestle with it. You gotta wrestle, and just work it until you get the result that you like and that you're happy with. Now here's the trick. This is where you discover where your own individuality is in this area. One of the ways to get better at drawing is something I tell kids all the time, is draw from life, draw all the time, and number 3 is finish. And this is my favorite bit. You get to decide what finished means. So for you get to decide what you're satisfied with. Are you unsatisfied until you get the specific image from your head on the paper? Or are you satisfied when you just hit the emotional beats you were after? Or if you get like, you know what, the whole image doesn't need to be exact, but this one bit, this hand gesture, this facial expression, that needs to be right. So you pour your concentration into that bit, eschewing the others. Or you end up somewhere in the other direction where the entire composition must be a certain amount of exact, or a very high certain amount of exact. And that's okay, that's valid. I will give you just a little bit of warning though. I want you to remember this forever. Carry this with you everywhere you go. Perfect is the enemy of finished. No one is perfect. No person is perfect. No artwork is perfect. You might think that they are, but they're not. Even Michelangelo's David has imperfections. But man, if you have just this perpetual project that you work on forever and never finish and never share it to the world, well, the world is missing out. But you have a point where you could say, you know what, like as I know we're all shooting for excellence, but sometimes it's okay to say good enough, because I need to finish. Because finish is the thing that you're after, not perfect. No one is perfect, no artwork is perfect. Some get close, but nothing is perfect. But when you finish, then you get to share. And then the world gets better. The world gets better when you share your artwork. Here's another quote that I want to carry with you, and if you listen to the series for a while, I swear you will hear it again. I think this is a Donald Rumsfeld quote. I'm not sure, look it up. But the quote goes, "You go to war with the army you have, not the army you want." And this is a supreme wisdom, because man, if you've got a job to do, you've got to do it. You can't wait for prime conditions, because if you wait for prime conditions, you'll wait forever. You got a job, you got to do it, and you can't wait until you're perfect at doing the job before you do it. You figure it out in the process. If you've got a story to tell, you need to tell it now, because if you put it on the back burner, what you're doing is you're creating idea debt, and what you're doing is you're harming yourself psychologically, because it's almost like you're stubbing your toe. You're mentally stubbing your toe, kicking a wall, just like, don't kick the wall, just do your best and make the artwork and do your best. Your best is okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect, just do your best, because your best is great. No matter where you are in your art journey, your best is wonderful. Revel in the fact that, like, yeah, this is the best that I can do, because so many places in life, particularly in jobs, mediocrity is what they want. But art is the place where you get to put your best, and you get to look at your best and shine about it. Perfection is not the best. Perfection is an ideal. Don't worry about perfection. Don't worry too hard about getting the exact image from your head. Not too hard. You get to decide how hard you want to do it. Just don't hurt yourself trying to get the exact image from your head on the paper. Just do your best, because you've got a story to tell now. Like walking through the desert. Don't ration your water. You're thirsty now. You'll die of thirst. Drink as much as you can now. You have a story to tell, you gotta tell it now. Take the tools you've got and tell the story now. You'll get better in the process. And think of it this way, that's where we got punk rock from. I'm not a big punk rock fan, but even I recognize the impact it's had on culture in general. It's born of, I've got something to say, I really like music, I don't have a whole lot of talent, but I've got a lot of enthusiasm, so here I go. And I'm just gonna do what I can with what I've got. And from there you get this gigantic international global musical movement that spills over into other parts of culture. And it's had its problems, but I believe it's a net positive. So think of it in that way. More than once I've heard, what would Black Flag do? You know? That's the I'm just gonna take what I've got and do my best. And there's another direction that I just want to revisit. Think of the Stephen King quote. Half of it is you're putting down your idea, but the other half is you're uncovering a fossil. Something that feels as though it was already there, you're just discovering it. Put your eyes on the page for a second. This sketch, this is all fossil. I didn't have ideas for this. I just started throwing down shapes that I liked, and then I started putting lines between those shapes, and then it just formed into this. Kind of looking at the shapes and lines that I made as clouds, and what do those clouds make me think of? And so we get a fun rhythmic group of shapes that turn into two Cyclops aliens and a droopy looking bird. So man, that's just following shapes, that's just doing my thing, that's uncovering a fossil, and it was fun, and it was cathartic, and now, like in this video, you're watching me finish the thing, and I get to finish it, and then I get to share it with you, and that's just so fun for me, and I hope it's good for you too, and that's what it's about, man. That's what art is here for. So, I want you, Saturn, I'm talking to you specifically, and if anybody else wants to try it, do it. I want you to think about a drawing or a work of art of any kind that you work on. And I know you'll have a specific image in your head, but I want you to eschew that image. I want you to instead think of, okay, what's actually important about this image, and then just do it up loosey-goosey, and see what comes out the other end. Just play it fast and loose, see what happens, and you might like it better. Because remember, Scotty Young started out as that guy where every line had to be perfect, and then one day he just decided, what happens if I play it loose? And then it turns out he liked the loose stuff better. You might too, and it might be good for you. And I want you to remember this. I've only ever heard of one artist that got the exact image from their head onto the paper. And that artist was Jack Kirby. And Jack Kirby drew so much he would fill up a sketch pad inside of a week. Most people, if we could fill up a sketch pad a month, we feel like we're doing good. But he would finish a sketch pad before 7 days were up. And he started filling up sketch pads at that speed when he was 5 years old, and he never slowed down. And it wasn't until he was middle-aged that he got to the point where he's like, I see the image on the paper already, and I'm tracing the image that I already see. He's the only one. And there's a reason they call Jack Kirby the King. He's the only one who did a lot of stuff. So try not to stress too hard about the image you see in your head and not on the paper. Because at the end of the day, the best you can do is not just good enough. The best you can do is great. So get out there, make it happen, do your best. Take care of yourself, take care of your friends, make art.